Welcome to councillors, staff and guests in the meeting itself, and welcome to residents viewing the meeting on YouTube. The meeting is being live streamed to YouTube in its entirety, and I ask you to bear that in mind when speaking. The owl, for those of you who don't know, the owl in the middle of the room will track you when you are speaking, so you'll be on camera and on microphone. Okay, so we are off and running with the agenda. Can I ask, before we start, anybody who's got a mobile phone, switch it to silent, please? Item 2 on the agenda is apologies and absences and any substitutions. Do we have any, Fayre?
Everybody's here.
Everybody's here. We have some guests this evening, so welcome everybody. Any declarations of interest for anything on the agenda? Yes, please. Councillor Huckle.
Thank you. I have a non-pecuniary interest in the Western Community Group to attend one of the churches, and I'm still on the bank as treasurer, although I have now retired from treasurer of the Wyke Christmas Fair. So I've got no financial interest in those two. Thirdly, in the private section of the Lookout Cafe, although not having a pecuniary interest, I do know the tenant quite well, so I will not take part in that picture.
Thank you, Councillor Hope, and then followed by Councillor Weller.
Thank you very much, Chair. Non-pecuniary interest in the application from Western Community Group. I'm a member of the community group.
Thank you. Councillor Weller.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I have a non-pecuniary interest in the grant application from White Christmas Street Fair. I'm a member of the church in Westham, and I think that's all.
Thank you. Councillor Harris.
Non-pecuniary interest in the Western Community Group.
Councillor Hamilton.
Non-pecuniary interest, White Regis Christmas Fair Committee.
Thank you. Got those, Fayre? Brilliant. Thank you all. Item 4, minutes of the last meeting. I've checked them. Anybody got any comments to make the last F&G meeting? I can sign as a true and honest record. Councillor Watley. Proposed by Councillor Watley, seconded by Councillor Frost. All those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Unanimous. Okay. Item 5, councillor questions. Do we have any pre-notified councillor questions? Any councillors here on the committee or not on the committee want to raise a question at this stage? Item 6, public questions. Excuse me. Any members of the public? Questions not appertaining to applications we'll take at this point. No? Okay. Moving on. So, first substantive item is grant applications, and the first one of those up is Wyke Regis Christmas Fair application, which I'm going to ask the town clerk to introduce.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillors, you have 4 applications in front of you tonight. We'll take them individually just for ease of questioning. Thank you to all the applicants who have joined us in the committee meeting tonight. So the first one, Chairman, is the Wyke Regis Christmas Fair Committee. The committee wished to install an electricity supply to enable the Christmas tree in Wyke Square to continue to be lit. The ongoing costs of that electricity supply will be met by the committee. The total project cost is £2,866.80. The work can only be carried out by a single contractor because it is to one of Dorset Council's streetlights, and so we're only able to use the authorised contractor as notified to us by Dorset Council. The application amount is for £1,366.80, and the recommendation is that that full amount is founded. The balance of the amount is coming from the Wyke Regis Christmas Fair Committee themselves. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Dan Clark. I'll take questions from councillors now. Councillor Legg.
Thank you very much. I read about this in advance of obviously when I was reading the weekend, and I sent to Councillor Weather and Councillor Hamilton this question I'm asking now. I've actually had a written reply, but since the rest of the committee wouldn't have had it, I think I ought to ask a question so you, and then we can talk about there or then give the reply. Sorry, I'm just reading the answer now. Three questions. One is, how is the tree lit currently? Because, you know, we wanted to put a new system in. Well, how is it done currently and what's the problem with that? What alternatives to a fixed power supply have been considered? For example, battery supplying low voltage DC lighting, battery and inverter supplying mains voltage, other greener solutions. And the third question, how does the expenditure of £2,866.80 be valued for money? And my concern about that was it seemed very expensive, especially for what we were getting back. And whilst I like the idea of supporting this sort of application, I don't want it to appear to be overly expensive.
Interesting three questions. Anybody want to? Councillor Weller, do you want to come back on any of those that you can answer quickly?
I did respond to Councillor Howard, so do you want to read my answer?
Yes, we go ahead. We can get it in a minute.
I should have replied all rather than that, so I apologise for that.
I note that you support the application. This is from Kate. I note you support the application of funds to WTC for a permanent power point for the Christmas tree. The total cost seems quite high, but it doesn't explain what the details of the costs are, such as length of run. Oh, actually, sorry, that's my question. What is my problem? It's come back actually in a different size than I normally do it, and right. Hello, Howard. Joe Taylor's taken over as chairman of the Wyke Christmas Street Fair Committee just this year. Previously, it was me, and I may be better placed to answer your questions. I agree the cost seems very high, and it is certainly higher than that which was first indicated to me, hence the fact that we have a shortfall in village funds. I first made the request for this work in January this year. Dorset Council, as owners of the lamppost, with a current electric supplier, are insisting on their designated contractor and a much increased safety standard. That's what we've just been told. With which we are happy to comply. DC has also requested that WTC are the customer and WCSF, that's White Regis Fair Committee, have agreed to contribute to the cost. Previously, and over many years, the provider of the tree, the former electricity board employee, wired the lights into the neighbouring lamppost. The electricity company were aware of this and seemed not to mind.
Yes.
Actual running costs were minimal, I believe. Last year, a new provider cut off the supply without notice, damaged our lights and denied access to any electricity. The tree remained unlit. The provider of the tree looked into alternatives. Obviously, at this time of year, solar lighting is unreliable. I think we agree with that. External batteries of the type you suggest were rejected, but I don't know the reasons. But I have no reason to suppose that our tree provider did not look into this fully, as he is a well-regarded local businessman, builder and property owner. The lights used will all be LED and therefore low maintenance and low operational costs. The Street Fair Committee have indicated that they will retain funds each year to reimburse WTC for the cost of the power. I reiterate that the cost does seem high, but it is the cost quoted and does not seem to be negotiable. It is a one-off cost, as once the power supply is installed, it will be in a position every year, both for Christmas and other events. Whilst work is being carried out, we are proposing to install a power point from which a PA can be run for both the Christmas fair and other events, for example, the coronation. As you may know, I've been fundraising over the last week and have approximately £500 more, so the amount for which we are asking is reducing. I confirm the figure on Wednesday. I hope that answers most of your questions. Please get back to me. Thank you.
Very comprehensive. Thank you, Councillor Legg. Do we have anybody here from other than?
Well, the Christmas tree is the main focus of the square, because it is the fair is in the square. It's a very community-based fair that we do, which Kate has been organising for many years, and I've only just taken over this year. The Christmas tree is used not just for the fair, but for carol singing from the church, and also a congregational point at New Year's Eve celebrations. It's very important, obviously, to have health and safety in mind where the electricity power supplied to the Christmas tree. Make sure that it is health and safety and designed properly. And unfortunately, this year we have been hit with this cost that we can't seem to be able to fund all of it, although we have received donations, and the donations now stand at £880.
Sorry, but £500, so we.
Sorry.
We need the price.
So we need, sorry, donations have got £500, so we need really £1,000 donation, £1,000 from the council, which hopefully you can give us.
Can you just confirm the exact amount that you would be asking for from council, so that members are clear?
Because we don't have electronic banking, we haven't been able to access the account today to know exactly how much money has gone in. So on messages I've received, I believe we have a little under £500 donated thus far. I anticipate that there will be more than that, but it's hard for me to confirm that. So what we would be asking for tonight is, rather than the 1,380.80 that we asked for, if we could ask you for £1,000, and if you can allow us to say later on, we don't need that much, please don't give us that much. But if we've got £1,000 assured, we know we're okay. So I know that that's a little bit irregular, but just to be absolutely sure that we have sufficient money. And if we don't need that much, we won't ask you for it.
And what date would that be? Can you give us a date when the final decision?
Well, as soon we will be receiving an invoice from Weymouth Town Council, and we will pay that, and we'll let you know when we're paying it how much money we are able to give you. I know that that's very irregular, Chairman, and I apologise for that.
We do need a figure amount, because the funds do need to leave the town council's account to come to you to come back. Otherwise, it's going to cause us.
Could we then say £1,000, please?
Councillor Hope, thank you, Councillor Wyke. Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Chair. I was just going to say, I believe it's an agreement with the allocation within the policy anyway, that any unspent or unspent from the fund is returned to Weymouth Town Council. So that if we are going to allocate 1,000, and the additional funds do come from residents and businesses in Wyke to make that up, and the 4,000 is not spent, the difference will be returned anyway. So I would be happy to support a proposal of £1,000. I would support the full amount, but now knowing only 1,000 is required, I'd be happy to support that. I've attended Wyke Christmas Fair a number of years. I know how popular the event is, and it's great that, albeit small, well, it's not a small Christmas tree, but a small token such as a Christmas tree brings the community together.
Thank you, Councillor Hope. Councillor Nicholson.
Thank you, Chair. I mean, yes, I think this is something I can support. My only slight concern is, did you say that DC are stipulating who the contractor has to be?
Yes.
So we're not allowed to go out to a competitive tender?
It's the street lighting, so there's a contract with PC.
Right, so we have no way of knowing whether that's a reasonable sum or not. I mean, clearly it's got to be done properly. It's got to be done.
Yes, it's the only sum. We wouldn't know, because nobody else can touch those lights apart from the registered.
Is it metered? Will it be a metered supply?
It will be. I believe it will be.
Right.
Tony, can you confirm?
Yeah, we don't think it is a metered supply, though, is it? It's an unmetered supply.
Right, so there might not be ongoing electricity costs.
Yeah.
Okay, let's deal with just £1,000 now.
Can I propose that we accept £1,000?
So we've got a proposal from Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Nicholson. All those in favour of this grant application?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9.
All those against? Any abstentions? 1, 2, 3. Congratulations.
Thank you very much. Very much appreciated. I should leave you to your business now, if I may.
You don't need to stay for the rest of the riveting.
Lovely. Thank you very much
Party.
indeed. Yes, thanks.
Next up is refresh. I'm going to ask the town clerk to introduce.
Thank you, Chair. Councillors, I know have read the background papers and so will know that the Refresh Warm Welcome in Town and the Western Community Group Warm Welcome in Western are intrinsically linked as two projects. They're your next two allocations, but I will take them separately to allow any questions to be directed to the individual applicants. So both projects are looking to use churches in their local areas to open up warm spaces for residents across the area. The scheme will operate out of a number of different venues. Those venues will be open at different times and dates to allow the best spread possible of a safe, warm space for people to access if they are experiencing difficulties in heating their own properties. Residents who attend will be given refreshments, hot drinks, biscuits, and in where possible with some of the venues, hot soup and rolls will also be served. So in the current climate where a lot of people are experiencing fuel poverty and the cost of living crisis is starting to bite, these warm spaces which are being offered in communities nationally, it's a much wider project than just Weymouth, will be vital lifelines to people who are unable to heat their homes themselves. We'll also address some issues of loneliness and isolation in some of our more in some of our communities where people experience some level of deprivation. Thank you, Chair. We do have representatives from both. The first applicant is Refresh and the second applicant is the Western Community Group. Thank you, Chair.
Floor is open. Councillors. Councillor Harris.
I have a question. I'm wondering whether there are any churches or other organisations that are doing exactly the same but are missing from these lists. For instance, the Western Methodist Church, I believe, is trying to have a warm space, and I'm just wondering if any of the people here can tell me why they're not included, and or whether there are any other people not included in this sort of application phase.
Yes,
Do you want to
I'm
comment?
happy to respond to that. I believe the Methodist Church is taking part in it now. All the churches have been contacted in the areas to see if they will take part. What we were trying to do was set up almost a network across areas so that people could walk quite easily to them and would have a choice of where they go to, sort of day after day. I forgot what the question was.
It's whether
Yeah,
the
so-
Methodist Church is going to be covered, and if anybody else wanted to be part of it, would the funds help spread to those other churches?
Right, what we're thinking at the moment is that there are two distinct groups, which is one group running out of St Joseph's Catholic Church and the other group running with Refresh at the moment. So they're working together, so they will be working together facilities, but they're running as separate groups. However, I'm aware that Wyke is already starting to come online. I believe the Wyke Church is open in the mornings now. Now, I haven't heard whether they intend to do food or anything else up there. I don't know whether Kate is aware of that.
Wyke Church is generally open in the morning. There isn't anything formal set up just yet, although they do some coffee mornings. It's a possibility that there's nothing formal arranged yet, as far as I know, and I was speaking to the rector yesterday and he didn't tell me anything.
I mean, I think the other big area is going to be Littlemore Preston and around there. Now, I believe Refresh is starting to look at Littlemore and what can be done around there. But if that comes in, we can start with that, but that will be a separate application.
Thank you.
So Dickinson.
Has the missing documentation been received?
Yes. Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Chair. Yeah, it's a bit of a sad indictment on where we are in society that this is necessary. But I'm really pleased to see that in view of the circumstances, that, you know, these initiatives are going on. And if you can pass on, certainly my congratulations to Refresh on this initiative, which is really excellent. I'm slightly confused because the two introductions are the same introduction, and it suggests, as has been stated, that the two groups are, or even more groups than that, are all working together. But this is a bit picky, I know. But, the first one is going to get approximately a third of its money, and the second one is going to get nearly half of its money. Can we not come up with some overall figure? And I do think that we, if I remember rightly, we have the potential to increase the grant if we think it up to 5,000, if we think it's necessary. Can we not make it more equitable between the two groups? Because I'm sure that the people of Weston and the people who are going to the town centre are of equal need. I don't know whether that's possible, Chair.
Just looking at I'm just looking at the detail, Councillor Lambert. The award is for 2,000 for each project. I think the variance is the cost of the project varies.
Right.
Jill, is there a reason that the cost of the overall cost of each project is different?
A lot of it was because we're slightly unsure of all the detailed costings. We're saying we can produce soup and rolls, but unless we've got money, we won't be producing soup and rolls, so I'll get a cup of tea and a biscuit. So basically, whatever is given for this, then we can use it with food and equipment. I've already put another charity in touch with St Mary's Church, who were after some equipment for it, and that's been funded that way.
Thank you. I'll come back to you, Councillor Lambert. Councillor Weller?
I was informed in the middle of last week that the in the church people, do you call it the diocese? I'm not sure. The diocese are offering funds to some of the churches as well, so there are other funds coming in. And if, as suggested, there are other venues that are coming on board, we could perhaps look at that funding again at that time when we've got a more comprehensive view of what's happening. I know that certainly in my own church, requests have gone out for contributions of tea and coffee and biscuits and all the rest of it. So it looks as though we're probably covered for the moment, and we can look again as we advance, because we're really only just at the beginning of the winter, and it's going to be a long cold winter, as they say.
Thank you, Councillor Weller. Councillor Lambert, did you want to come back with a counter proposal or an amendment? Because just looking at the detail, there are in the application B, there's 7 venues, and they get 2,000. In application C, there are 4 venues, and they get £2,000. So I think what I'm hearing is we're not quite sure of what we'll get, we'll spend. I'm just asking whether you want to come back with a counter proposal in terms of the amount.
I mean, it's quite complicated.
Yes, it is,
isn't it? But I think maybe we should come up with an overall figure and ask for some computations to be made in terms of equity outside of this group. I don't know whether that's acceptable, but I mean, they're both coming under basically the same heading.
Yeah.
And it may be, you know, we said, right, we want to put £5,000 into this at this occasion. And then it's divided up pro rata between the number of venues or the. I don't know.
I think I'll come back to you, Councillor. I think what I'm going to say, Councillor Lambert, is I think we heard from Councillor Weller that we don't quite know how it's going to go. If it's going to be a long cold winter, then we would be open to them coming back for a second application. It does allow in the rules that from an emergency point of view that we could listen to another application and trust them to spend the money that we're going to allocate today. And if they want some more, would that satisfy your sort of, you know, if it's a needs-based, you know, if they need more money for soup or whatever, they could come back for some more funds. Would that satisfy?
Okay, yeah.
Councillor Hope and then Councillor Weller. Sorry, Councillor Legg, yes.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm just picking up on some of the points there in the breakdown. And obviously, one application is looking to serve more venues than another. But I think the fact that the churches and Refresh are involved in overseeing both schemes, the resources will be shared as required through this. So as Councillor Taylor said, they're offering soup and bread. Now, they're not going to let that bread go to waste because they have a lower attendance on a Tuesday, when on a Wednesday they've got a higher attendance in the church or in town centre. So the resources will be, from what I can gather, will be shared. So effectively, we're giving the money to the two organisations to run the two projects. It's almost going to be spent together. And I think it would have been easier for us to see this because they could have applied up to 5,000 to come in as one project, one application, and probably sold Councillor Lambert's views. But I think we are where we are with these applications today. And quite often we talk in this chamber and amongst colleagues about how can Weymouth Town Council support its residents with the cost of living crisis within our boundaries and remits. And I think today we've got something in front of us the Weymouth Town Council can support and help our residents with this cost of living crisis. So I'm really pleased that the application's come forward. I'd like to echo the comments of Councillor Lambert and thank and refresh the churches and all the volunteers for stepping up and doing already what they have done to get this project off the ground, along with Councillor Taylor as our community champion on the Town Council. And really just fully endorse this application, and I'm happy to propose both for the full amount when the proposal comes to the table, Chair.
I can't come back to you. Councillor Legg, my apologies for I kind of issue.
That's all right, Chair. Thank you. I'm used to it from you. I rather like this idea. What I don't like is that it may well be restricted in some way or other, and I'd like to encourage any advancements on the service they're providing to people to be easy to do. And I'm thinking of things like, what happens if there's children come along and they may want something, play area or stuff, or play things, and they've got to pay for them, or they may well get some of them, but they've got to supplement that. Or elderly people come along and they want books or newspapers to read to keep them there, because after all, they're staying there to be warm. They don't want to pop in for half an hour. They ought to be there for some considerable time. Otherwise, they're not actually saving that much on heating bills. So with that in mind, I'm going to propose that we give £5,000 jointly, providing both groups can agree how that is split up between them, and anything unspent by the end of the winter is returned to us. And that's in our rules anyway.
Thank you, Councillor Legg. I'll come back when I've had who else wants to speak. Councillor Weller, did you want to?
No, thank you.
Anybody else? So we've got Councillor Warner.
Yeah, at our over 50s this afternoon, who are now over 70s, they were most interested in going round I think they're looking not just for somewhere to go to keep warm, but somewhere to talk and chat and natter. And for that reason, it is a good idea that they're available. And that they're plotted out their weekly run. So I'm not saying they go to everyone, but they are looking at. And I agree with Councillor Legg. Let's give them 5,000 between the two groups.
So if I'm hearing right, B and C was 7 venues for 2,000 on B and 4 venues for £2,000 on C. If you add those together, Councillor Legg's proposal was for 5,000 for a joint application. So Councillor Legg proposing, Councillor Watley seconding. So I'm going to take that as a...
Chair, can I just say, as you mentioned about this may not be enough, should we formalise the fact that if this isn't enough, that we are prepared to look at another application further on? Should we formalise that?
Yeah, I would second that.
Yeah. The limit in the policy is 5k. sort of doesn't indicate whether the second application could come.
But to be fair though, if we split the two, we are actually.
Yes,
actually
I
two
know.
for each, so
I knew you were
we-
going to say that. So what I'll do is I'll ask Fayre to put on the end of the proposal that we, that it'll be 5K for B and C to start the project, and if there is a need, a second application could come back to this committee for further funding. That's the price.
Yeah.
I'll just say one final comment from Councillor Harry.
It was just a question on further support if required, and obviously we have a community development fund. We was going to spend that on the Tour de Britain project, obviously, which didn't happen because of it being in a. Is there funds still available within the community development projects that possibly could be tapped into rather than delays of coming back to committee?
Tony, would you like to comment?
Yes, certainly, we do have money still left in the community development initiatives budget. I think it's about £3,000 we have left unallocated, 2,595. So that could be used, not as a grant scheme, but as a officer's discretionary budget.
I can see Councillor Weller eagerly writing now. Slide, papers, books. Yes, I think that's a good proposal, and yeah, you know, we'll take it outside of the grant system as and when we need it, but we'll still leave the wording in there. So, proposal from Councillor Legg, seconded by Councillor Wally, was for 5,000. We're taking B and C together. All those in favour?
2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12.
Unanimous. Is anybody refresh? Okay, well,
Sort of thing, but no, thank you very much for
Well done.
your support.
well done for all the hard work. I'm sure it'll be appreciated.
Thank you.
Okay, moving on at rapid pace. D is the Ridgeway Community Radio CLC trading as Keep 106. I'm going to ask the town clerk to introduce.
Thank you, Chair. Again, I won't go through the application form. I know members have had that previously. It's also been available on the website. Ridgeway Community Radio are a community interest company trading as Keep 106. They wish to improve the continuity of their 24-hour local community radio station service to the South Central Dorset with a particular focus on Weymouth and to increase their focus on Weymouth. They currently borrow a transmitter, but they now wish to purchase that along with generators to ensure that they can carry on broadcasting should there be a power outage. They do valuable work in informing local people, and they're keen to work in partnership with Weymouth's Air Radio as the opportunities for digital broadcasting are soon to be extended to community radio stations as well. The total project cost is £7,500. Members will note that the application amount was for 5,000. Members are aware that community groups are able to bid to the community fund for up to £3,000. However, in exceptional circumstances where a clear need, urgent need for additional funding is demonstrated, that can be raised to £5,000. However, that urgent need is, for example, if there was an older person's day centre and the boiler had broken and they would have to shut without the boiler. It's that sort of urgent need that is needed to be demonstrated for an application to be able to go over the £3,000 limit. And unfortunately, this application couldn't demonstrate that urgent need. Taking an amount of £3,000 and pro-ratering it as we do for the amount of people who will benefit who are Weymouth residents, that brings us out at a recommendation of £1,200. Thank you, Chair. And I think we do have people with us today from the station.
So members, any questions? Councillor Dickinson.
Yeah, just to be clear, if we give them 1,200, or do we, where's the rest of it coming from? Is the money available so that it can be delayed, and how does that work?
Do you want to?
I think, is that on?
That's it.
We have some reserves, not enough to make up the 7,500 for the whole project. But I think getting this started in order to maintain a continuous service during a winter which may well see local power cuts is important, and repaying those who loaned us equipment to get started is important in terms of just, you know, being a properly run organisation. We are applying for other funds, and as a radio station, we do have the ability, and indeed we do already advertise, although at very, very lower rates than commercial radio stations. And we would hope in future to get more income through our own efforts in terms of advertising and sponsorship. But hopefully we will be successful in applying for other grants. One of the problems we have is that although we provide a service to anyone who has a radio with an FM band on it, and we don't fit many of the criteria for specific grants. Although interesting listening to your discussions this evening, the Warm Spaces initiative, which is wonderful, is only going to be as useful as people's knowledge of which warm space is open on a particular day. And that is something which local radio could promote and advertise. So I think it's a matter of working in partnership with bodies such as the council and the voluntary groups that are running these things. And we're able to reach nearly all of the population of Weymouth. So yeah, we will endeavour to make up the shortfall, but this would be an extremely valuable start. And as anybody who's applied for funding already knows, as soon as the ball starts rolling, then others come on board. And I have no doubt we will succeed in achieving our objective.
Thank you, Alistair. Questions, anybody? Got a couple. Can I ask, if nobody's going to ask, can I ask, has Dorchester Town Council contributed to this? Because obviously it's only 40%, and 60 must be in Dorchester.
Not at all, because of course we broadcast over all the areas, you know, including Dorchester. And so I wouldn't say it was 60% in Dorchester. We haven't sadly had the resources to conduct an in-depth survey. What we are aware of is that there are almost as many listeners to Keep 106 after 5 years as there are to Greatest Hits Radio, which is an amazing achievement for a community broadcaster run entirely by volunteers. Yes, Dorchester Town Council have and will continue to support us. So yes, that is useful, and they have contributed in the past and are continuing so to do.
I meant specifically for this application, have they contributed any financials?
They are going to be asked to, and I have every indication that they will.
So not at the moment.
Not as of this split second.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm looking at the application, and this, I've got to admit, this is one I'm finding very difficult to support. And really, I just want to know, what is the need right now to do this project? You know, what is the need to buy this transmitter now if one has been available to the station for the last 4 years? Is that going to be withdrawn? And without this, the station is going to cease to exist. And the same with the backup generators and bits and pieces. You know, what is the need to carry out this project now? Because I think there's going to be much more need locally, as we've just seen with the warm banks, to support residents in these really tough times. And I'm not convinced that this is going to be a value of the taxpayers' money.
Do you want to come back?
Can I just answer that? A lot of you know me already. I'm Rob Bott. I'm the company secretary. I do the afternoon programme. I've interviewed a lot of you, including you, actually, Rob. I don't know whether you know, but last week the BBC announced a huge cutbacks in local radio. Everybody in Dorchester's jobs under threat. Dorchester, the part of Solent in Dorchester, could disappear completely. And at the moment, they only do 2 hours a day of programming. Wessex FM disappeared a couple of years ago. That leaves Air 107.2 for the Weymouth and Portland area, which is demographically for the 0 to 25-year-old age group. But we are, well, when we applied for the license, we said 50 plus, but we found that we appealed to the 30 plus audience. We are effectively, for Central Southern Dorset now, the only radio station. You guys all live in Weymouth, you know. I don't know about you, but if you get your TV pictures from Wyke, you get BBC South West. If you get your pictures from the satellite, it's BBC South. We're on the fringe for everything. And the reason we started the station in the first place was because we were fed up with this area being left out of everything. Why is this so important? Well, it ties up with what you're trying to do here with these community centres. What's the point in having them open if people don't know they're open? We can do that. We have What's On Diary, which is absolutely free to non-profit making companies. We did an audience survey in April was the last time, and we had a 20% audience share in the area. 20% for a community station is almost unheard of, and that audience has grown all the time. What we have had is 2 years of COVID, which hit our advertising. We lost all our advertising, and now we're heading towards a massive recession, which means that our advertisers aren't spending money with us. So just running the station is a nightmare. But if you're going to have power cuts, which is what they're proposing this winter, what's the point in having a local radio station that's not there the one time you need it when the power is on, is what I would say. And that was the reason for this proposal. I'm more concerned, the transmitter actually belongs to me. I'm more concerned about the generators and being able to continue if there's a power cut, which there's likely to be, rather than the transmitter on fire, as far as I'm concerned, is not a top priority. Does that answer your question?
Do you want to come back, Councillor?
Yeah, I think it sort of answered my question. Realistically, the funding is wanted for points 2 and 3 more than 1. But then I ask, if there's a power cut, how are the audience that would probably be listening to the radio station going to be listening to it if the power's cut? Because those that are probably listening more through digital or DAB are probably going to be more looking online for the updates and bits and pieces like on social media from sort of SNG, for example. So I'm just, I really, I appreciate what the station does. I fully understand it. I think we're being asked here to do some more infrastructure updates, not running updates. It sounds like it's more saying that's where the station needs support. It's just difficult at this time.
Councillor Wyke, would you like to contribute?
Thank you. Yes. I'll firstly try and answer Ryan's point. I do recall when there were power cuts more frequently, or it hasn't happened for some time. I certainly have a small battery powered radio in my possession somewhere in the house, and you can always sit in your car and listen to the radio. And if there is a power cut, you'll find the phones stop working very quickly. The mobile networks won't last very long. So in the eventuality there is a power cut for more than an hour or so, local radio will be about the only form of communication in the town. And I don't know how much the media is scaremongering, but there would appear to be a much higher risk of that happening than ever before, or certainly within living memory at the moment. So for that reason, I'm not on this committee, but I can see the merit in having more local resilience by having a better equipped local radio station. My only sort of comment is we've got 2 local radio stations, and when I was on this committee, we did support AIR. I think we funded them for a new transmitter to quite a large sum. So it would appear to me, my question is, can we get the 2 radio stations to work together more? I know they're going for different demographics, but it does seem slightly redundant to have 2 in the local area. You could have, well, they could combine resources. I'm sure that the sum would be greater than their parts if we could help them, facilitate them to work together at all. But
just respond to that.
I'll finish. But yeah, in my opinion, I think there is merit in this because there is some genuine concern about the state of our power grid this winter.
You want to come in?
Yeah, of course. We do work with AIR, and we're working on a small-scale DAB scheme with them. The idea is that we will both put in a bid to Ofcom for DAB. At the moment, neither station broadcasts on DAB, and we're working very closely with the guys down at AIR to try and get a small scale license. If we can capture that license, the 2 community stations, then some of the profits that we make from other stations broadcasting on DAB will go towards Keep and will go towards air. So that's good news all round. That, I don't know when that's going to happen. Ofcom work in very slow and mysterious ways. As far as, obviously we do broadcast online, and a lot of people do listen online with smart speakers, etc. That would go if there's a power outage. Obviously, if the network, the network goes down, we would lose our ability to broadcast online. But we certainly would be able to broadcast on FM and continue that. We need 2 generators because our transmitter is on the Ridgeway, and obviously that covers a massive area from that site, much bigger than air in Weymouth. About half the size of the county, in actual fact, we can reach. But it's fair to say the target audience really is Weymouth, Dorchester and surrounds. But we need 2 generators because we need one for the actual transmitter site, and we need one for the studio site, which is in Dorchester. And then there's a relay, a microwave relay, which goes to the hospital in Dorchester, which of course that's not a problem because the hospital's got generator backup anyway. So that would be the setup.
Thank you. Councillors, any other questions? Do I have a proposer? Councillor Legg, do I have a seconder? Councillor Harris. So this is Ridgeway Community Radio. All those in favour of the 1200 1200. All those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
All those against? And any abstentions? Congratulations.
Thank you very much.
Thank you very much indeed. Much appreciated. And can I just say, don't forget, if you've got anything that's going on in the community, let us know. Because we haven't got a big news gathering service. Let us know and we will publicise it as best we can for you. Thank you.
Again, you don't need to stay much. I will be in touch with the finances.
Thank you very much indeed.
Last on item 7 is the Friends of Weymouth Peace Garden, and I'm going to ask the town clerk to introduce.
Thank you, Chairman. Just to go over what's on your agenda, councillors, the Peace Garden is a multi-faith community garden, extremely well maintained, very important local green space, run for residents and visitors to use and enjoy as a peaceful space for reflection. The gardens are actually managed by a group of local volunteers who give their time very generously to tend the gardens. And they wish to replace a tree seat, which I think I'm right, is a seat that goes around the trunk of a tree.
Yes.
Thank you. And that's just become beyond economic repair. It's been repaired several times, but now is the time to look at a new tree seat. We do have representatives from the Peace Garden in the room, Chair, should anyone have any questions. Thank you.
Councillors, any questions on this item? Councillor Hone, followed by Councillor Lambert.
Thank you very much. Maybe Tara might actually be able to answer this one for me. But how much would the standard bench cost?
Benches going up. Every time we go to get a price, they're going up. The standard benches we probably install now are probably about £1,300, £1,400. This is a bespoke tree. It's beautiful. It goes around a tree in the garden. It's very special.
No, thank you very much. I have seen the Peace Garden up at the Bunno Gardens, and the only reason I asked that was I'm looking at value for money. If it's a bench and a bench needs to be replaced, is there a more beneficial way to do it? And whilst I understand that the tree bench has a certain look and feel to it, I think it could do what a standard bench would also do. So again, this is going to be an application I'm going to struggle to support, and listen to the rest of the debate and conversation.
And we need to respond to that.
You can.
Thank you. So I have to press that.
Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
I understand what you're saying about a bench as a bench, but if you haven't sort of been, I know you said you've been in the Peace Garden, but people would appreciate it because of the ambience and the look of it and the peacefulness. If we stick a straight bench there, it's not going to look like the previous one, which did go all the way around, but it was a very, very cheap one that we bought on an impulse, and very soon after the Peace Garden project as a whole was started. What we want to do now is replace it with something a lot more long lasting, and that's what we've got on in our minds at the moment. We did ask various local people like the Man Shed to give us a quote for building one, because we hoped that was going to be an awful lot cheaper. It was actually very, very much more expensive. It was £4,000. £4,000. Was one of the quotes we got from one of them. We gave up after that. So yes, I understand what you're saying, but you're not looking at it the way all the people are that come in and actually sit on that bench. We've seen so many people sitting there just taking in the peacefulness.
If I could just respond as well, because what Tara just mentioned is that absolutely true. That since the pandemic, the price of wood has just rocketed. We need something that's very robust, very hard wearing. The last one was between 8 and 10 years old. We can't exactly, 7 to 8 years old. It was being repaired and patched and repaired by one of our volunteers. And in the end, it was almost dangerous. We had to have it dismantled because it was going to be a health and safety hazard. We did actually look at the possibility of having 2 or 3 standard benches with some sort of U shape or something like that. We did, as Viv said, we looked at a number of local suppliers, particularly the Man Shed, because it would have been a great project for them to work on as well. They came in even more expensive. We looked at a couple of bespoke ones, which were £8,000. So although that does seem quite a lot of money, you get a lot of bench for your money. And it's as well as that, it's a feature. Have you been to the garden?
Yes.
Has anybody not been to the garden? Well, we're getting more and more and more local people coming regularly. We're getting loads more visitors than ever before, often just discovering it quite by chance and absolutely delighted. So, you know.
Thank you. We've got a few speakers and we need to move on. Councillor Lambert, you wanted to come back, and then Councillor Weller.
Yes, thank you, Chair. I'm all in favour of peace. I'm all in favour of gardens. I'm particularly in favour of the Peace Garden, it being in the ward which I represent. Councillor Hope stole my thunder rather, and some of my concerns have been answered, but it does seem a tremendously large amount of money. I have seen the picture of it, and I think I'm persuaded to support this, where I had severe doubts beforehand.
Councillor Weller. Thank you, Councillor Lambert.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I'd like to propose that we accept this. I'm a huge supporter of the Peace Garden. It's a particularly favourite place of mine. And it is a truism. You get what you pay for. You can put a cheap one there, and in 5 years' time, you'll be replacing it again. It does need to be that circular around the base of the tree. That's the whole purpose of it. It looks good. It creates the right ambience and everything else in that location. And I have absolutely decent park benches, decent benches. Don't come cheap. Let's not do it half measure. Do it properly.
Councillor Harris, last word.
Thank you. I'd just like to remind people that I'm sure that a bench around the tree has actually got more seating space than 2 benches, and we've heard that 2 ordinary benches would cost just as much money. So let's go for this.
Okay, so looking for a proposer, Councillor Weller, seconded by Councillor Dickinson. All those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
All those against? Any abstentions? Congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you very much indeed for your support, and hope we'll see some of you up there in the not too distant future. Yeah, just thank you very much indeed.
Okay. No need for you to stay if you want to leave the rest of it. Is, okay.
Chair, can I just ask, when will it be installed? Can you just ask when?
It's we put a deposit on, which was refundable if all of this didn't happen. And we're just trying to sort out where it's going to sit. It needs a little bit of leveling because of the tree roots. So we have somebody in to have a look at that, whether to put some blocks. So it could be in within the next 2 or 3 weeks.
We hope so. It's a bit tricky because the roots are all over the place, and we've got to, wobble it around quite a bit before we can make sure that's it.
Thank you very much.
Super, thanks a lot.
Okay, moving on. Yes, Councillor.
Thank you very much, Chair. Just on the rest of the paper, I see now we've got the inclusion of 250 or less grants.
Yes.
And we've only had 2 today.
Yes.
Is there any sort of pending coming through, or can we have a bit of a push really on this maybe through comms? Because I know the process was changed to try and encourage more to come into that. We've changed the process, but it's not seemed to increase the applications. And again, I think these small amounts of £250, especially at the moment, sports school, local football teams and youth clubs and all sorts of activities, I'm sure would be a great benefit. I've pushed it to 2 clubs in my ward, and I'm actually sort of disappointed to see it hasn't applied yet.
We'll make a note of it, and we'll talk to comms about that. So moving on, item 8 is to budget monitoring. I think Ian's going to.
Just stand chair, because I haven't got the microphone rather than just the people at the back and here. I'll just introduce very briefly, and then we've got the budget holders here, Chair, who can answer any detailed questions. The Q2 report obviously has gone out. There was an amended version which we've just adjusted for the HR reserve on Monday. So if you take that into account, Chair, we're showing that there's a projected underspend for 2022-23 of around 52,000, which is encouraging at this time of year. It's especially encouraging as that now includes the pay award, which was agreed on the 1st of November of £1,925 per full-time equivalent employee, and that is being agreed and built into the budget projections, Chair. So what that does mean is the budget holders have been working very hard to be able to absorb that increase, because members recall it was a 2%. Put into the budget's 2%, but it's actually come out a little higher than that, just under 7%. So officers are hard keeping vacant posts open to try and absorb some of that additional cost. What I would say, Chair, and I think the officers will probably agree that although we're able to do that now, it's unsustainable going forward, keeping those posts open in the shorter term, just to cover those costs. We've been able to do that. Income remains a challenge, but obviously again we're working hard to ensure that we can maximise our income. But that's the general outline for that, Chair. We've got the budget holders here. Just ask any detailed questions to them.
The floor is open. Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much. Before I actually get to the questions, can I just ask our Deputy Town Clerk just to clarify for members of the public that may be watching this back on YouTube, the pay award isn't something that was agreed internally. It's flowed down by, is it national government? Because I know there's quite often perceptions from members of the public that council officers award themselves big pay rises. So I think it's just important that whilst we talk about that, and it was a key factor in the introduction of the report, that it's important worth noting that that is set by national government and not an increase set by this council.
Correct. And I think this is the first year where it's been an actual finite amount rather than a percentage. So it benefits people on the lower scales rather than people on the top scales, which I think is a good thing. So, for any other questions? I've got a few. Councillor Lambert.
Thank you, Chair. If I could, excuse me, question either the Chair or the Deputy Town Clerk. I'm a member of the Seafront Waste Bins Working Group, and we've received intelligence that the cost of that service is going to increase. Not to be too dramatic, but dramatically.
Absolutely, yes.
Is this an appropriate time to comment? I think at least the members of F&G should be aware that there's a real potential problem on the horizon. I don't know whether you're going to address it in some other way, Chair.
I wasn't at the half year, but I think Tony, we are still in negotiations, aren't we, with DC on this? But have you got a sort of a guide percentage increase on because it's our biggest contract?
Yeah, for next year, I've been talking to Ian about an inflationary increase budget. And in order to keep within that, and we've talked about the figure, I think the current cost is about 230,000. And I think the increase will be to something like 260, 250 years, nodding good. In order to achieve that, we would need to actually reduce the service. So we'd have to talk to Dorset Council about leaving some things out, not deploying the large bins for such a long period of time. If that's what we want to do for the next year, unless we can find an alternative way of getting a cheaper service.
For the like-for-like service, the increase was enormous, wasn't
If like for like, it would have been 115,000, yeah.
Councillor Harris, followed by Councillor Lucas. I don't want to get bogged down at this point because it's not part of the Q2, but I will take a couple of questions on it.
I was just going to correct that impression that it was only going up to 260,000 and the offer for the like-for-like was 415,000.
Yes.
But the working group will be meeting to discuss options.
Cutting across accordingly, yes. Councillor Nicholson.
Yeah, thank you. I mean, I think what Councillor Alice says right, and I think as a group we do have now to look at options. It may well be we have to look at options going out to competitive tendering on this, because obviously that sort of increases. It's just huge. I'm not sure we can absorb that, but I think the working group have got this in hand.
Yes.
And we will be looking at very closely.
Trust your fellow colleagues to come up with a proposal. Okay, any questions on the Q2? I've got some. Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Chair. And it's really a question to either the town clerk or the deputy town clerk. And I know the council has been cautious and rightly so of its financial position in the last sort of 6 months, and especially this last quarter with inflation rises and everything else. But can they assure, and I'm really asking this as the chair of services, can they assure us that services are still being maintained at the current levels that was being delivered, and that the assurances haven't seen any current reductions in those services within this budget?
Whilst there haven't been any significant reductions in service, obviously with some posts being held open, there are some areas of work we've not achieved the volume of work we would have liked to have achieved. And those posts have been held vacant to attempt to balance the budget. We are in quite a, with the budget reduction for this year, we are in quite a difficult position, but services are continuing. The work in our parks and gardens and on the beach hasn't been reduced. We're still meeting our commitment to support community groups. So there hasn't been significant reductions. However, when we present the draft budget to you at the next Finance and Governance meeting in December, you will have some challenges to talk through to be able to present a budget to full council in January for agreement then. As you're aware, we have to agree our budget in January in order to inform Dorset Council by the end of January what the precept amount will be. And there will be some challenging discussions, I'm sure, as to what level of service goes forward in 23-24.
I'll just come back on that, just for a point of clarity again. So what we're saying is that there's been some delays probably in some of the project work, more strategic level projects are being delivered, but frontline services, which the general public would more see, such as parks, gardens, beaches, open spaces, and community support has maintained at its current standard?
It has been maintained, and I think that the managers of those services deserve special recognition for their keeping those services going through these challenging times and meeting Ian's and members' challenges to reduce costs wherever possible.
Right, you'll say. Any other questions? I've got some quick fire questions. Ian, I'm sure I should have asked these at the pre-meeting, but can you just explain to me the town's mural reserve, because I'm confused about this, because it's showing a £15,000 overspend, but is that because it appears an income from the bid? It just worries me that it's in red.
So that's a fair point, Chair. There is a direct link between income and expenditure in some cases, as members will appreciate. So there will be a few lines within there, Chair. The murals is one of them, the hanging baskets is another one, and the art quarters is another one, whereby there's an increase in cost, but that's offset by an increase in income. And hopefully we tried to explain those main variances in the narratives of the end.
Thank you. Next one for me. Are we actually planning to use any water in commercial road? Because there's no spend allocated this year. I'm a bit worried that we're going to get a massive bill. It's got 0.
Yep, we are undertaking significant work with our utilities, and there will be bills, and it has started to come through, Chair. Particularly, we just had some come through recently, which is related to the beach office, and that relates to previous years as well. But we do put provisions into those, which means it's spread across the years to which the usage relates. But there will be bills for utilities coming through as a result of the work which is being undertaken by officers.
This is a minor question, but we spend £3,000 or budgeted to spend £3,000 a year on PA system maintenance. Do we own a PA system or not? And if so, do we spend £3,000 on it? Because I'm sure the one I saw at Greenhill wasn't ours.
So my understanding is, Chair, and officers,
I think that's a problem. I don't have an understanding of whether we have it or not.
We will be able to correct them. We do have 2 PA systems, as far as I'm aware, of varying sizes. If you ask me if we spend £3,000 a year on maintenance, then we haven't to date, but there may be a need for replacement and looking after our assets and replacement in some stage. So I would suggest that that would be something that we can pick up as part of the program.
And where are they kept? Sorry to be pushing on this, but if they're ours, should they not be here?
There is a control system which is partly operated by, we get a contract with Weymouth Pavilion, and they also service and they operate and to turn on the individual tannoys along the seafront, which are connected by wireless communication. I can provide you with more detail, which might be better after the meeting and circulated to members.
Thank you. And can you confirm the £10,000 allocation for the armed forces, because we're showing a £3,000 overspend, and you were going to check to see whether we actually received the 10K?
So just on that one, Chair, traditionally we have requested £5,000 from the MOD in respect to the armed forces. This year we have invoiced the MOD for 10,000. There's an increase which we were able to claim this year. So that's why the increase is on that line, and we'll get additional income to cover that. And we are waiting for payment to be made. Yeah, so the invoice has gone.
Yes, I have.
Thank you very much. Question I've got is, again, I always bring this one up, vandalism, one of my favourite ones on the quarterly reviews. You seem to have had no vandalism in our premises. I saw some in parks and gardens.
Yeah.
But within our premises, which I presume include our public conveniences, we've got 0 spend on vandalism.
So you're quite right, Councillor Hope. Following the request from previous meetings, we have staff where we can to approve transactions against that vandalism code, because I think it's important, as you quite rightly said before, that members of the public are aware of what we do have to incur, which is above and beyond what we should do because of vandalism. The public conveniences are slightly difficult to isolate costs, and we're working to see how we can do that, because a lot of the replacement equipment we buy in bulk beforehand, for example. So there will be damage to our public toilets, and we have to replace seats and taps, but that's bought prior to the incidents taking place. So it's a way of isolating those costs. And I think it's also important to remember that, particularly in respect of the public conveniences, a lot of the cost actually is staff time as well. There's an enormous amount of time spent by our cleaning team fixing and tidying up after incidents have happened, which may not necessarily incur costs for equipment, but it does tie up a lot of their time to fix those sort of cleaning areas. But we will continue to try and make sure that we can isolate costs where we can.
Can I ask then, because we've asked several times about vandalism on toilets, can we make an attempt by the year-end accounts to allocate a certain amount that we think is down to vandalism? We're not going to hold everybody to the penny, but I think we could probably make a reasonable judgment of how many taps, how many mirrors, how many solar dispensers and windows.
We have had that discussion,
Okay.
and we believe it's around £5,000 for the public convenience.
Councillor Nicholson.
Yes, thank you, Chair. Can I ask you, are there any significant cost accruals that aren't in these figures? Because clearly, as part of the budget as a group, we'll need to rely on these figures somewhat to look at next year's budget. So are there any significant accruals that aren't shown? Obviously, one's been mentioned tonight, about the water thing, but are there any other?
So we don't put the accruals in the sense which I understand you'll understand, Councillor Nicholson, like we do at the year end, to ensure that they're matched against the appropriate years. What they will have is the anticipated expenditure built into the projection. So, we built those into the year-end projections of what the cost will be coming year end. So if there's any particular areas we just need to pick up on, we can do that as part of what we do, but they are in there.
Finally, from me, Tara, just wanted a couple of questions because I know you've waited. Thank you for staying. Revenue from cemeteries is obviously, because you did predict this, I think, last year. I think we had a discussion and it's starting to tail off now. Not a nice subject to talk about, but looking at the last 5 years and looking forward, it would be really important in this second half of the year to get some sense of where the curve's going. It's not an action. I just want you to think about that in terms of revenue income, because you know what's a small deficit now could become a larger one in the next 5 years. And you know we've got 100,000 in a cemetery reserve, and we've got income we rely on to provide the service that you. So I just want you to think about that, perhaps for next year and the year after. My second point might be to you, it might be to Charmaine in terms of the vehicles. Charmaine, where are we? Okay, so you know we budget every year for people who are listening. We budget every year as an under budget. That money then gets put into a vehicle reserve in which we buy or lease vehicles. What we don't have is a timeline to say your spiker, or whatever you call it, in 7 years' time is going to be non-spiking. So I'd like a sort of investment profile.
Come back on that one quickly. Right, we're making some headway because obviously we've been saving the money so that we can change our fleet over to electric. And in fairness, a lot of companies now are, or manufacturers rather, are producing flatbed electric vehicles. So we've approached Ford, Peugeot, Fiat, Iveco, sorry, I don't know how to say that, and Renault. So we're getting costings, and it looks like we can start, even if we can't obviously change over all the fleet. We currently have tippers, they're all tippers, but we won't need all tippers going forward, so there will be a slight cost reduction. But we are now able to assess costs, which is a good thing. And I think that sooner rather than later, we will be in a position to start buying electric vehicles.
Yeah, that's sort of only one half of the equation for me. So the other half of the equation is I'm still not clear about, I don't think the asset group is either, about what vehicles we own.
Yeah.
and what is their shelf life? Because at the point that they stop being useful is the point that we need to replace them. We wouldn't do it before. So is it possible for you to put together an asset sheet? Or
So following our conversation yesterday or the day before, it's something I'm starting to look at, and apologies because we just haven't seen each other because we've been really busy. But so I'm looking at across the council, so both with Tara and with Tony, and then working with Tara and Tony, we can put together a schedule so we know we can program out how many this year, next year, and so forth for next 5 to 10 years, whatever we need.
Sorry to be.
And also do an analysis of what we actually do need.
Yes, well, there is that, but can we also do some analysis about whether we buy or lease? Because I still don't have a definitive, you know, as a small town council, whether we buy this £50,000 vehicle or whether we lease it for 20 years. And you know, I need that evidence because it's a major investment.
Yeah, currently, our vehicles are all bought, so we fully purchase them, but obviously, like you said, we do have to look at that going forward, whether we lease or we purchase.
So,
yeah, Chair, can I just say something? Bearing in mind, we don't appreciate that as in the council.
I think that's the
going forward for next year's budget review, that we have some idea of what those costs are going to be next year, whether we lease.
I think that's the point. What do we replace any vehicles next year? Can we afford to replace any? And that's the question I have, and I don't know. So feels like we've exhausted all the QC questions. Can I have a proposer for this item 8? Councillor Nickinson? Oh, sorry. Yeah. So the recommendation is councillors agree to recommend a Q2 finance report for the period ending 30th of September 2022 to full council. Proposed by Councillor Nicholson, seconded by Councillor Hope. All those in favour? Thank you very much, members. Moving on. Item 9 is a request for release of reserves for works on this building. And Tony's here, patiently waiting. So Tony, would you like to introduce? Thank you.
Yes, in fact, I'd like to instantly pass over to our new property manager, Shane Smythe, who is here to introduce the report.
Hello everyone, good evening, big chair. Just as you know, my name is Shane and I'm the new property manager of the Chatham Council. Our report seeks committee support to release the reserves for the actual recommendation to go to full council for approval. The recent review we've had of the fire safety in the new town hall has highlighted the works that need to be taken as soon as possible, as well as external repairs to the building to ensure the upkeep, the water tightness and the overall general good state of repair. If the funds are approved, we will always seek competitive quotes for the works. This is all as part of the council's effort to guarantee that all its properties are well maintained and safe.
Questions, Councillor Harris.
Yes, I don't have any serious problems with meeting this request, but I do think that it raises a serious question that we need to have. Following on what we've just been talking about with vehicles, I think that it is important that we now have a survey of our properties coming forward on a regular basis, maybe every 6 months, telling us, you know, what is likely to be needed in the following financial 2 years or year or 2 years. And just have that as a general item on our agendas every, I think 6 months would be sufficient, just so that we do know what we might be needing for the future.
Shane, would you like any further comment on that? Given that you're...
Obviously, I'm just obviously my 3rd month now into the job. And obviously,
so sorry then.
No, but not yet. But hopefully that's what we're brought on to do, is to do a plan going forward of works and when they need to be done and what's in priority. My first task was to come in and obviously review the fire risk assessments, and obviously when we did the fire risk assessment, the major areas were highlighted that needed to look into. So going forward, this will be one of my key areas after.
So you'd be happy to come back and talk to us about what your next investment might be?
Indeed, yeah.
Yeah. Can we diarise that for the future plan? It's done. Thank you. Councillor Wyke.
Thank you. My sort of question is, if I was running a private business, would I be moving on this year? Because it's a quite substantial piece of work. And my concern is we're basically emptying the property reserve out to do it. And we're going to, the budget is going to be challenging for next year, we're very aware. Is this the wisest time to completely empty the property reserve? And if we are unable to fill it for the next 2-year recession, is that wise? That to me really is a question of priority. I appreciate that some of these are flagged as urgent, some of them are keeping the building watertight, 100%. But completely emptying out the reserve at this point just strikes me as I'm uneasy about it, and I worry we won't be able to replenish it in the next year or so. And what position does that leave us in?
Councillor Nicholson, followed by Councillor Legg.
Yeah, I would entirely agree with that view. I think it's bearing in mind the tightness of the budget is going to be next year, and the fact that we don't really have any detailed understanding of what repairs might be needed to our buildings. It's going to be very difficult to put some sort of figures into the budget when we are so short of information. Is it possible, therefore, that these works can be marked in terms of priority, so that perhaps we don't have to take it and hold the reserve, because we could be, as has been said, we could be in a difficult position with next year's budget, not really knowing how much we need to put back into the reserve if it's empty, because we don't really know what the scope of the works on our buildings are. Because clearly, I don't know where we got the figure last year for this sort of reserve, but clearly it wasn't enough, because it's leaving us with nothing now.
It's been there for a while. We've got another reserve. I'll come back to Councillor Legg. Did you want to go next? I'll bring the town clerk in at some point. So.
Yes, if I can. So, for those of you who don't know, I used to be the finance brief holder on Weymouth and Portland Borough Council for 3 or 4 years, and always taken an interest in their finances. And when I took over that job, I think in about 2004 or 5, we had an awful lot of bills coming in at that time for things that were not in any schedule, which is one of the things I think we ought to have, is a schedule of long-term maintenance, so that we can look at it on a year-by-year basis and have it updated every 6 months. And we had things like the land train suddenly came up that had to be replaced, and we didn't have much notice of it. That the stone pier, before my time, actually came on and had work done to it. We got grant aid for it, but it wasn't actually planned for. And in that sense, it's all skewy. And then this building here, when it was an art centre and had other community facilities in it, we got a huge bill, or to let it just go to pot and collapse. And all that was because we'd never done our maintenance. And if you just push it aside, it'll creep up on you later, and it really hits you hard. So I'm saying, no, if it's down for maintenance, that's almost top priority. But I would like to have it scheduled regularly so that you know it's coming along. Now, when you look at these external works that are in this, which is on the page right there, I think there's about 8 bullet points there. I think 6 of those are essential. They could actually lead to water getting in. Now, when you get water into premises, the job gets bigger, more expensive, and more consuming. And I think 6 of those could lead to water ingress. So they've got to be seen to now. And whilst you're at it, you might have to do all of them, because I think they're all required, like regress lead work. I don't know whether that would let the water in, or it probably would. And therefore, in my way, no way can you postpone that work. Or if you do so, you're paying an awful lot more later on for
it. Councillor Hope, followed by Councillor Weller.
Thank you very much. I think Councillor Legg said much of what I was going to say. Is if we don't maintain it, the problem's going to get worse, and the bill's going to get bigger. I'm really interested in the fire safety works, and I see though a lot of the fire safety works is recommendations. Is there any of this work that needs to be carried out because it was a failing of the assessment on health and safety, or these recommendations that need to be checked because we just don't have the documentation that says these doors are up to a grade they need to be? And the second point of the question is that if any of the work isn't carried out, are we in invalidation of any insurance, whether it be safe works or buildings or anything like that, if any of this work isn't carried out, in particular the safety works?
Hold that question. Councillor Weller, last point, and I'll bring it down.
Thank you very much, Chairman. I absolutely love it when I'm able to completely agree with Councillor Legg. failing to do maintenance is poor management, and if it needs doing, let's do it. And in terms of the fire safety works, if it means that people working in this building are at risk, then it needs to be done. If it can be delayed, that's fine, but let's schedule it. Let's get a schedule and know what we're doing.
Thank you. Councillors have really said what I was going to say. The external works are needed because if water gets into this building, it will cost an awful lot more to put that right. You have a maintenance reserve. That amount of money is there to maintain the building. We are asking to be able to use it to maintain the building. As one of your officers working in this building, it worries me that we do not know if this building is fire safety regulation compliant. Should there be an incident, it's not only the health and safety of your staff that is at risk, it is the very lives of your staff that is at risk. And I would just like to take this opportunity to remind you that corporate manslaughter charges can be levied against any employer that does not protect its staff from incident. And if I could just ask Ian Mill to come in on the budgeting aspects of this.
Before you do that, we have two reserves. One's got £10,000 in it that says commercial road maintenance reserve 10,000, and a one further down that says 67,000. Can you add that into your explanation?
Certainly, Chair. I just don't have it on. What I just wanted to highlight, Chair, again, this is something which we've mentioned over the last sort of few years, and it's not until we get to a position like this that it hit home of what we're trying to explain in terms of the budget. So when the budgets were set up, members will recall that we quite often say that we've built into those budgets, especially the maintenance ones, an amount that we precepted to underspend. And the reason for that is because that underspend on a yearly basis gets put into a reserve to allow us to undertake these works as and when they come up. They may not happen in year 1 or 2, but they may happen in 3 and 5. But every year, the precept was designed that there would be an underspend on those maintenance budgets that we put aside to cover these works. Obviously, over the years where the council tax has stayed level and there's been reductions, the ability to put sums away has probably been reduced. But I think it's worth understanding that the way that town and parish councils funding works is you have to precept for the longer term and medium term projects, and we need to be prudent and to have a think of how we do that going forward to ensure that our assets are looked after and we can replace them and maintain them. And in the respect of your £10,000, yeah, the 67 was the amount which was brought over from Dorset Council's partnership on day one, and £10,000 is the balance which we have started to build up over the last couple of years.
Thank you. Any other questions? Councillor Nicholson.
Yes, thank you. I mean, I can see where you're coming from, and I feel that it is important we get this work done. But from a budgeting point of view for next year, if we haven't got some sort of schedule, how are we going to know really what we need to transfer back into reserves for future work? Because clearly this, I don't say it's come a bit of a shock, but all of a sudden we've had to spend a whole lot, which is obviously necessary. But we seem to be going forward in the dark, because I'm not entirely sure how many problems we have in maintenance, but we could be looking at a big, a big hit in the coming year, or even 2 years. And I just feel we're neglecting the fact that we don't really know what the potential liability is.
Shane, loud and clear, we need a schedule of what buildings we've got and where there's any urgent.
Indeed, Chair.
Red, amber, green.
All I would say is this building is owned by Weymouth Town Council.
Yes.
Most of the properties we do have are rented, but obviously the schedules I've put together are very important. These are the critical repairs are needed. I mean, over the time I've been here, I know a lot of people are saying obviously there hasn't been any schedule in regards to the fire doors and so forth. But obviously when I've come on board and I've looked at the paperwork to ensure that we are, legally required to do them, we haven't got the related paperwork. So these works have to be done, especially when it comes to fire.
It's going to hold you responsible for bringing back a report before the year end.
Yeah.
Thank you. Last word, Councillor Owen.
Yeah, thanks, Joe. I still don't think my question was answered in relation to the fire safety. And again, I see it's recommended. Okay. Obviously, I've got a bit of experience in health and safety. I undertake some duties in my profession. And what I'm asking, and I didn't have the answer for, was when it's recommended, have we got to do it immediately? Or could it be on a schedule of works? What if that cost is required? Because a lot of the report is unknown. It may be required. This may need to be done. This needs to be checked. Tell us if this needs to be done. I think the fire thing, I'd be feeling more comfortable coming back with more detail around it. Let's do the checks, let's do the surveillance, let's find out what actually needs to be done with the costed plan before releasing the reserves.
So, sorry, going back to that, the checks have been done by a qualified heat tech engineer who's actually serviced them and checked them, and this come back as a report of what, obviously he's saying that obviously he's going to give us guidance without actually taking apart the door and the framework to see if the individual strips are in place. We have no idea, so he's given us a ballpark figure between 25 and 30 to do the actual relevant checks. I think it's about $40 to check. Some of the visible signs that you can see around the door, if you look at the glass in the actual panels, they are faded, and the reason why they're fading is the actual strips have burst, and so over time that now is becoming an invalid door.
Do we know who did the work in the first place?
And so the works were done back in 2004, 2005. So they're over about 15, 20 years now, the doors, but in that time they should have yearly checks done and carried out, and I've got no paperwork saying that.
Thank you.
Sorry, Chair, I'm sorry, I want to keep going on, but so this is just to carry out the checks, that sum. If the works need to be done on top, is that going to be a further request?
No, that's the checks and the works.
Right, okay.
Can I move the recommendation as printed?
So yeah, proposed by Councillor Legg, seconded by Councillor Huckle. All those in favour? All those against? Abstentions? One abstention. Okay, moving on rapidly. Members, if I can ask you to be very focused, please. Beach, item 10, beach attraction licenses for 2023, and Tony, I think, is going to introduce this. Tony.
All right then. Thank you, Chairman. Just inviting our property manager to go home to his family.
Thank you, Shane. No, thank you.
The council has planning permission for 4 sites on the beach where attractions, typically fairground style rides, are located for the entire summer season. In 2021, the council agreed to offer 1 season licenses for these sites, both 2021 and 2022. The aim was to avoid entering into long-term arrangements of any operators while the council developed a seafront master plan. The licenses have all expired, and although the council is in the process of developing a seafront master plan, with the expected draft presented to Services Committee in December, it will take time to implement any changes to the layout of the attractions, as any changes will require planning permission. The ideas emerging from the seafront master plan suggest that the grouping of attractions into 1 central site in order to provide a coordinated offer for visitors might be beneficial. However, this will need to be considered by members. In the meantime, the committee has requested therefore to give authority to officers to offer 1 season licenses on the current 4 sites for the 2023 season. These licenses will be procured through an open competitive process with the town clerk signing off the agreements. Thank you.
Thank you, Tony. Councillor Harris.
Can I move the recommendation?
I'm going to take some questions first. So I've got a question. But, any questions? Anybody else? Maybe that's just me then. Just more feedback, really, which I have given Charmaine, Tony. I'd be absolutely against making it 1 site because it's a single point failure. If you appoint 1 operator for 4 sites and that operator goes down, you've lost all of your attractions for that year. One of the strengths of having 4 different people is A, competitive nature, and B, whilst it's a bit messier, I understand that, I'm not really interested in how easy it is to do. You know, at the end of the day, fairgrounds attractions can be volatile, let's say. So my feedback is I wouldn't be voting for one site. It would be four for me, four separate sites, which has served us well for a number of years. So that's all. So I think no other questions. I think Councillor Harris, were you moving the recommendation?
Yes, because I think your comments are for the future,
yes,
not for this
agreed.
recommendation.
Seconded by. Okay, Councillor Ho wants to make a comment.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Again, it's more feedback from what I received this year. And my understanding was having a large fairground attraction rise on the beach. And when a proposal came forward from one potential operator, he was told that it was too big to go onto the beach. When this operator then turned up later in the season, and he rang me quite disgruntled, the ride that was on the beach, the big white one, was probably larger than the one he wants to put there. So I would just urge officers that we have very set criteria. We're saying no large rides that stipulate a footprint.
Yeah, I'll ask Charmaine to comment.
So coming back on that one, each of the 4 sites has planning permission, and only the one with Health Skelter, that's the highest site that we can put something, so they all have individual planning permissions. I think Ryan, you're referring to possibly the clock site. No, okay, but all the other sites do have strict planning permissions regarding height, so that may be why that one was planned out.
I wasn't talking about height, I'm talking about size on footprint.
We did have a problem with the white one, which we corrected later on in the season.
Yeah.
So
I'm just.
Can we take it out of the meeting and meet separately for that? Sorry, sir. So motion by Councillor Harris, seconded by Councillor Dickinson. The recommendation itself reads, the committee agrees that the council will offer a single season licence for 2023 for the 4 attraction sites, A3, A4, A5 and A6 on Weymouth Beach, and gives the town clerk delegated authority to award the licences following a procurement process. All those in favour? Unanimous. Thank you, members. Item 11, first bus information kiosk. That's the pallet thing on the seafront. Yes. Charmaine.
Thanks, Chair. So following receipt of planning permission earlier this year, as of 12, first buses were issued with a 1-year licence to operate bus information kiosk on the seafront. It's felt that 12 has been a success for both parties, and first buses have asked to renew their licence to operate in future years. It's proposed that members agree the issue of 2-year licence as per the fee details within the confidential appendix.
Any questions, members? Councillor Wakeling.
As I'm here. I don't have an objection to it, but it's just ugly. Can we not ask them to provide something better looking? It's a conservation zone. I'm sure if you tried to get permanent permission for that, they'd throw it out straight off because it's just not appropriate. But can we ask them to wrap it better or something, please?
Planning permission has been given by Dorset Council for that particular kiosk, so that has got permission from Dorset. However, we can speak to the operator and ask them to wrap it better.
Pretty fine. No accounting for taste in planning. Sorry, Peter. Councillor Lambert.
Beauty, of course, is in the eye of the beholder.
It is indeed.
Yeah, I hope everyone will support this. It's a really good service, and in the absence of any tourist information centre, where we continue to show ourselves up year in, year out compared to the opposition in other seaside centres, we actually get a free tourist information guide, because I've been there and he's been giving out all kinds of information, as well as on the buses. So it's a double win for us, in my opinion. Thank you. Obviously, from the point of view of encouraging buses, which you all know I love.
Yeah. I wonder whether we have ever investigated, doing a dual one or one next to it with tourism. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's not like it can't be that costly. Yeah, we ever looked at
that? Services have requested information. Oh, sorry, a report on service tourism information centres.
The guy there does a very good job already.
Yes, Councillor Weller.
The subject of tourist information comes up so often, but in reality, there are so many places around the town. I was at the Weymouth Museum pop-up this morning, and we're offering tourist information there all the time. Everyone who is talking to tourists is talking about tourist information.
Thank you. Councillor Hamilton?
Thank you. Yeah, I would just like to big up the Weymouth Information Shop,
Yes.
which is crammed to overflowing with bus timetables and is full of information for visitors and for residents alike. Thank you.
Brilliant. Charmaine, I've just got one finance question, which is I won't say the amount, but the amount proposed for 2023, is that an increase on 2022 or is that this year?
Said it in the report.
Yeah, it is an increase on the year that we just had. Can't be exact increase, but it is.
Yeah, I was a bit confused about whether the top line 2023, is that 2023, 2024, or is that 22, 23?
Season 23, because it's done by season, not by.
Okay. So season 23 next year, that represents, because inflation's at 10%, that includes an inflationary rise already in that number.
Yes.
Because you're adding inflation the following year, but if you haven't had any inflation for next year, then you're.
We've added it.
Thank you. Brilliant. Did I have I've forgotten where I had a proposal for that. Proposal for that. Councillor Weller, seconded by Councillor Watley. The recommendation was that the committee agrees, that the finance committee agrees to be issuing a 2-year licence to First Bus to operate a bus information kiosk on Weymouth seafront. All those in favour?
4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
All those against? And 12. No abstentions, thank you. Item 12, land train proposal. Charmaine to introduce.
Thank you, Chair. As detailed in the report, the council has been approached by the operator of Weymouth Land Train Limited, who wish to operate their land train on the promenade between Green Hill and Beach Office. They want to operate daily between April and October, a couple of hours in the morning, a couple of hours in the afternoon. The company's land train is currently operated on diesel. It's an old land train that you've probably seen operating around town, and it used to be owned by the borough. The operator is proposing that they use HVO fuel as an alternative fuel option. Members are requested to approve the offering of 1 season licence to the operator as per the PD detailed within the confidential appendix. This has also been discussed at the Income Generation Group.
Councillor Legg, followed by Councillor Lambert.
It's rather a similar question to you asked on the previous one. Without obviously going into figures, but we can read what the confidential appendix has got in there. Is that an increase over the current one, and what sort of proportion?
It's a new service, so.
It says to renew in the report, requesting another 1-year licence.
That's in addition to their site that they have. So they have already have a licence for
DC, yeah.
Like DC, but they also have a licence for bus stop, like landing stop.
Oh, I see.
So the one they currently operate is on the highway, which is a contract they have with DC. This one will operate on the promenade. New route. Councillor Weller.
Can you just clarify, is this an additional train?
Yes.
Yeah, right, thank you.
No, it's not an additional train, it's just an additional.
Oh, I see, same
Oh,
train.
right, so it's the same train,
Yeah.
but they're, so
They're
they
going to
go
convert.
their long route occasionally and short route. Okay, fine, thank you.
Councillor Lambert next.
Thanks, Chair. Yeah, I was unfortunate enough to be caught next to the land train coming out of Oak Square with buildings on each side, and the stench and the air pollution from it was pretty grim. It is, of course, diesel, and that's part of the problem. I'm sure I won't bore you with all the details of diesel pollution. However, the proposed new fuel, the HVO, is also basically a diesel, and it's, in the information here, it's given as a renewable. Again, you won't want me to bore you with my thoughts on biofuels and the disadvantages of those, but a couple of things then. Firstly, I think it is a step forward that they're moving to HVO fuel. And as detailed, that as in the way in which these things are calculated is deemed to be a decrease in greenhouse gases. However, it states something like 40 to 80%, I think, and we really need to be getting to zero carbon. So I will, I think, be supporting this. But I'm wondering if we can't set down a bar which says that within X number of years, we expect that this will be operated by an electric vehicle. Whether it's possible to say that, to give them a warning. I mean, I would like it to be an electric vehicle next summer. I don't think I'm going to be reasonable and say I don't think that's going to happen. But I think we should be putting down a marker to say that we really feel that they should be running electric vehicles. Young children and people on the promenade are going to be right adjacent to the exhaust of this machine. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lambert. Councillor Botley?
It's the same land train as they've got now.
Yes.
So how are they going to run both routes?
Charmaine?
That's an operation issue down to the operator, so the licence will be robust for those routes that they've asked for. If he feels that he can operate them, then that's down to him to fulfil that. So yeah, it's open to the operator really, but that's what he's asked for.
Councillor Weller?
Following on from what Councillor Lambert just said, I thought we had made a decision or a resolution that we were placing a time restriction on when he had to convert to electricity. I may have dreamt that, but I was fairly sure I'd been involved in the debate on that at some point.
I think his contract's with Dorset Council, so it would be hard for us to impose. I think we did discuss it.
We could implement something because obviously on our land we could suggest that he goes electric after 1 year. But I'm aware that there's 6 figures to procure an electric land train. So I think it's actually, there's a business case behind that, and if it's viable. So maybe we suggest that we issue a 1 year licence, and if he does wish to renew in the future, then
I think the problem with that is, of course, once you let the cat out of the bag for 1 year, he's going to come back and go, well, I can't afford 150,000. I think that's a dangerous game to play.
I think the conversation that we were having about this was that we would go for a 1 year licence this year, giving him time to think about that. And then if he does go electric, we would be looking at a longer licence to help recoup that capital cost. So there is an element of negotiation here that is going to be undertaken.
Councillor Nicholson?
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a dangerous thing to set a target like that in a year when the cost of it is so high. Because it's not just the cost of the thing, is that who's going to provide the infrastructure to charge it? And where's that infrastructure going to come from? Who's going to pay for it? This is quite a long route. It might need charging at various points. So I'm just think while we should be mindful of this, I think to set that sort of target is just irrational, bearing in mind that we don't know where the infrastructure is going to come to support this. And we could just have somebody turn around and say, well, that's it, we'll go and do it. And then we've lost another attraction.
Councillor.
Thank you very much, Chair. I'm just getting slightly uncomfortable with the way this conversation is going now, because is the land train not a form of public transport? And a minute ago, Councillor Lambert was encouraging bus use, which is public transport using diesel. So I'm not sure what the difference is. I think we have got to be realistic. I would actually like to see more land trains operating in the area. I'd like to see a land train go along the railway trail up to Portlands. I think there's lots of options, and we need to be open with that. But yes, I think, and maybe advising that we'd like to see it going forward, but we have to be realistic. Are we really going to expect a free sticker sum being invested by a business which is effectively a one-man band during a really difficult time? Will the punters be here next year for him to ferry around on this train? That's the reality. So I think, we need to continue to support them and accept the licence.
Councillor Nick?
Thank you, Chair. I just want a word of caution. We don't have to be electric. remember to go greener. It's likely that large vehicles, heavy duty vehicles, earth mover type vehicles and lorries and that type of thing, are probably or possibly going to have to go to hydrogen because they don't need such weight with them like batteries are. And therefore, I wouldn't like to negotiate with them on the basis that they'll go electric. I would like that. Happy to go greener, but don't specify just electric because hydrogen may well be better for them.
Councillor Wyke.
At the risk of prolonging the debate.
You are.
I know I am. As a word of warning, currently hydrogen is generally blue hydrogen, which comes from cracking methane, which actually releases more
Green
CO2.
hydrogen then.
Green hydrogen is a very rare thing at the moment, but with renewables on the increase, there may be more green available. I recall we did challenge him previously, said we weren't going to have a diesel anymore, and I looked up how much the Dotto electric is.
I was with you.
Yeah, it's not 150k, it's significantly more, like orders of magnitude more. But to answer Richard's question, they do come with 2 battery packs, so you charge one up whilst you're driving around, and then you just use a pallet truck to swap the battery, and it can go for another 3 hours. So the charging infrastructure is somewhat more central.
Where does he store the batteries?
Well, you need a charging centre where you plug one battery in while you're driving off. The garage or something.
So there's more question than
Not going to ask because that's an operational issue. It's not doing-
The point I was going to make is the current land train is an L reg, which I believe is 1993, so it will be 30 next year. I can't imagine it's going to last a whole lot longer. Vehicles generally don't when they're driving around in the sea. So I think at some stage we will have to set an ultimatum. We don't want to go to buy another second-hand battered old land train when that one finally falls apart. So at some point, I think we need to say enough is enough. We do need to set a point in time where we need to go renewable.
Okay, I think we've exhausted that. The recommendation in front of you is that the committee agrees to offer Weymouth Land Trains Limited a 1-year licence for the operation of the land train on the promenade between the Green Hill Sluice Gardens opposite the Sea Life Centre and Weymouth Beach Office, as per the times detailed within the reports and the fees that are in your confidential attachments. Do I have a proposal for that? Councillor Hope, seconded by Councillor Nickinson. All those in favour?
3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10, 11.
All those against?
None.
All those abstaining?
1.
Item 13 is information only, and we've got a list here. First one up is community governance review. I don't know who's going to.
Thank you, Chair. Just to very briefly outline, I will be starting the comms plan on this very soon. Members will have received the community governance review paperwork and link from Dorset Council. I urge you all to have a look at that if you haven't had a look. The deadline for this consultation is the 28th of December, which means that our official response as a town council needs to be agreed in December. We're looking to hold a public meeting on the 13th of December in the council chamber to invite local people in to talk to us about the community governance review, to inform the committee paper that will be going forward at a special full council meeting on, I just have to check, sorry. At a special full council meeting to be held at 6 o'clock on Wednesday, the 21st of December, which is the hour prior to the finance and governance meeting on the 7th. We did look at various alternative dates to be able to avoid having to put in an extra full council meeting, but unfortunately to meet the timescales, it wasn't possible. That extra full council meeting will be a single issue meeting focusing on the community governance review only. There will be opportunities for members to discuss the proposals from Dorset Council at the next briefing and at the briefing on the 6th of December. And obviously, as I said, the public meeting on Tuesday the 13th, which will start at 5 o'clock. We've been able to secure Councillor Flower attending from Dorset Council, who is the chair of the Community Governance Review Steering Group. So he will be here to answer any questions on the process side that members of the public or councillors may have for Dorset Council. But just to remind everybody, this is a Dorset Council consultation, not a Weymouth Town Council consultation, but we are a consultee and are required to agree a council response approach. But everyone is able to respond individually using the Dorset Council online consultation tool. Thank you, Chair.
Councillor Huckle.
I'm not sure how this one comes on, but thank you. Will it be possible to obtain a larger map? Because my map on my iPad is very difficult to determine quite where the boundaries are.
We have asked Dorset Council for more detailed maps, and we had quite a few requests, so we're negotiating with them to get the actual map files, which means we can print our own maps, zoom in on specific areas. I'm not sure we have those files just yet.
Somebody's on annual leave, they'll get back to us.
Right, but we will have those soon. It's imperative with some of the boundary lines the Dorset Council are suggesting that we see exactly where those go, and it's very difficult to see on the online consultation. They appear to go down the middle of roads and cut roads in half, and so we just need to be aware of the finer detail, but we're looking into that. Thank you, Councillor.
Don't appear to, they do.
I'm not sure that there. Councillor Harris.
Can I just add that the other aspect of this that we're doing is actually we've organised another meeting with Chickle Council.
Be on the road then, won't you? I don't think there's any other. There are information items, digital screen update, seafront cleansing, actions from previous meeting and the forward plan. Is there you can.
Can I just say on the digital screens, I've had a couple of attempts trying to get the governance group to meet in a meeting and failed. So I have done an email circulation and sort of drafted an advertising policy. Unfortunately, I missed the cut-off in this meeting, so you haven't enjoyed that tonight. But I think it'll be coming to your next F&G committee and then on to full council for the advertising committee, policy. If anyone wishes to get in touch with me with any suggestions or input before then, please do. Otherwise, it will be coming straight through.
Did you say enjoyed or endured?
I said enjoyed.
Sounds like enjoyed.
I like that, Jack. Item 14 is exclusion of the press and public. You may stay if you wish, Councillor Wakeling, as a member of the council. I think I've got discretion on it. Yes, you may stay.
I haven't read the paper, so.
You can go.
Can we have hands up for Councillor Waking to buy the beers and put them on the table for you, ready?
That's on the agenda, unfortunately.
So just we have a vote on the proposal is that councillors agree to exclude the press. All those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10.
All those against?
1.
All those abstaining?
I missed someone.
No, I'm not voting at all. Propose or a second. Process.
Go on, proposal, please. Proposed by Councillor Hope, seconded by Councillor Frost. All those in favour?
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11.
All those against?
1.
If I could, Chair, sorry to interrupt. I'd just like to confirm that we've killed the live feed to YouTube. Throw a blanket over the hours. Thank you. Sorry, Chair.